The mystery of the golden city Persepolis. In 330 BC, flames consumed the most magnificent city the ancient world had ever seen. For 3 days and 3 nights, the golden palaces of Persepolis burned, while Alexander the Great watched from the shadows. But what drove the young conqueror to destroy the very treasure he had fought so hard to possess? Today, we uncover the shocking truth behind one of history's most controversial acts of destruction. This is the story of Persepolis, the golden city that ruled an empire spanning 3 continents, and the night that changed the course of human civilization forever. Imagine standing before the gates of Persepolis at the height of its power in 500 BC. Rising before you are columns 65 feet tall, carved from single blocks of stone and topped with the heads of bulls and lions. Every surface gleams with gold leaf that catches the desert sun like captured fire. This is not merely a city, this is the beating heart of the Persian Empire, the largest empire the world has ever known. From the scorching sands of Egypt to the snow-capped mountains of India, from the olive groves of Greece to the silk roads of China, all roads lead here, to this golden jewel in the Iranian plateau. The man who built this wonder was Darius the Great, a king whose ambition knew no bounds. In 518 BC, he commanded the greatest architects, artists, and craftsmen from across his vast empire to create something that would make the gods themselves weep with envy. For 30 years, thousands of workers labored to carve reliefs showing tribute bearers from 23 nations, each carrying the finest treasures their lands could offer. Babylonians brought golden vessels. Indians carried ivory and precious stones. Ethiopians presented elephant tusks and exotic animals, while Greeks offered their finest pottery and silver. This was not just a palisade, it was a statement to the world that the Persian king was the king of kings, the ruler of all humanity. But Persepolis held secrets that went far beyond its golden facade. Deep within its halls lay the royal treasury, containing wealth that defied imagination. Ancient sources tell us it held over 120,000 talents of gold and silver, enough to fund entire armies for decades. The walls were lined with tapestries woven with threads of gold, depicting the great victories of Persian kings. In the Hall of 100 Columns, the largest roofed space in the ancient world, the Persian king would hold court surrounded by representatives from every corner of the known world. The very air seemed to shimmer with power and possibility. Yet even as Persepolis reached its golden age, storm clouds were gathering in the west. In 336 BC, a 20-year-old prince named Alexander inherited the throne of Macedonia, a small kingdom that most Persians had never heard of. But Alexander was no ordinary king. Tutored by the philosopher Aristotle, trained in warfare by the finest generals, and driven by an ambition that burned brighter than the sun itself, he had a dream that seemed impossible: to conquer the entire Persian Empire and become the ruler of the world. The Persian king who would face this threat was Darius III, a man who had inherited an empire but not the genius of his ancestors. When news reached Persepolis that a young Macedonian king had crossed into Asia with just 35,000 men, Darius III laughed. His empire commanded millions of soldiers, his treasury could buy entire nations, and his capital was protected by mountains and deserts that had never been breached. How could one young man threaten the greatest empire in history? But Alexander was not just any young man. At the Battle of Granicus, he shattered the first Persian army sent against him. At Issus, he defeated Darius III himself, forcing the Persian king to flee and abandon his own family to Alexander's mercy. With each victory, Alexander's legend grew, and Persian nobles began to whisper that perhaps the gods themselves were fighting for this young conqueror from the west. The final confrontation came at Gaugamela in 331 BC. Darius III assembled the largest army in Persian history over 250,000 men, including the famous immortals, elite warriors who had never known defeat. The battle raged from dawn to dusk, but Alexander's tactical genius proved superior to Persian numbers. When the dust settled, the Persian Empire lay in ruins, and Darius III was fleeing eastward, never to return to his golden capital. Alexander's march to Persepolis took 4 months, during which he captured city after city, each surrender bringing him closer to the ultimate prize. But the path was not easy. At the Persian gates, a narrow mountain pass defending the approaches to Persepolis, Alexander encountered the fiercest resistance of his entire campaign. For weeks, his army was trapped in the snowy mountains while Persian defenders rained arrows and boulders down upon them. It was here that Alexander met Greek artisans who had been captured and mutilated by the Persians, their hands and feet cut off to prevent escape. The sight of these broken men filled Alexander with a rage that would soon consume the Golden City itself. When Alexander's army finally crested the hills overlooking Persepolis, even these battle-hardened veterans gasped in amazement. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for the sight of the Persian capital in all its golden glory. The city seemed to float above the plain like a vision from the realm of the gods, its columns and terraces catching the light of the setting sun. Massive staircases led up to palaces that dwarfed anything in Greece, their walls covered with intricate carvings showing the submission of all nations to the Persian king. The capture of Persepolis was swift and decisive. The Persian garrison, demoralized by news of their king's defeat, offered little resistance. Alexander's soldiers poured through the gates like a flood, their eyes wide with wonder at the treasures that surrounded them. Gold and silver beyond counting, precious stones that sparkled like